There's a lot of things that we don't talk about in schools that I think we do. And um, I know there should be some financial literacy courses required in high school, and maybe they're starting to do that now. But I know that my son doesn't have that. So I think it's so important as you're developing saving and spending habits and all of that to realize there's a road to financial independence and how credit cards play a part in that. There are dangers in using credit cards that you need to be aware of. And I'd like to cover some of those things in this video. There is a spiritual basis for managing your money. In Proverbs, there's a scripture here that talks about in the house of the wise are stores of choice food and oil, but a foolish man devours all he has. Another version, a wise man saves for the future, but a foolish man spends everything he gets. And to add a little bit, and a foolish man uses his credit cards to overspend. So a little bit about me. I've been in the banking financial industry for over 25 years, for a long time, actually 29 years. But I would like to spend a few minutes and just try to educate, help you become literate in some of the financial tools that are used by people and misused. And it's so important at a young age to make sure that you have the right information. How does a credit card work? What are credit cards? You've got debit cards, you've got credit cards. And debit card, if you were to log into your account online and see your checking account, let's say you've got $1,000 in checking. A debit card, every time you swipe that card, it would take the money out of your account. You have a $100 transaction, you swipe that card, now your new balance is $900, takes it right out. Credit cards, just the opposite. So instead of a debit, it's a credit. They're advancing money. So if you went into your account, maybe you see a credit card line of credit for $1,000. You make a purchase for 100, your balance on that loan goes up $100. And so you're making purchases based on a loan. It's borrowed money. It's not your money. So for instance, let's say by the end of February, February 29th, I look at my balance, and that's how a lot of credit card companies run their cycles, is month to month. So my balance is $1,000 on my credit card. They give me a grace period. By the 25th of March, I either owe at least a minimum payment, which most of them do 3%, so that'd be $30. Or in order not to pay interest on that loan, I'd have to pay the whole balance off by the 25th. And so you can tell that people sometimes misuse these cards to spend money they don't have. So by the time that payment comes up, they don't have the money to pay off the credit card. So that's the objective. That's the goal of these credit card companies. They want people to send them money and interest every single month and to be almost like a financial slave to them. It's so easy, but that's why there's so many credit card companies. It's a $170 billion industry. They make a ton of money off people and their inability to discipline their spending. So sure, it's convenient to use a credit card, but I want to talk about the risks associated with credit cards. It's very tempting, pull out your wallet, you grab the card, no money comes out of your account, just advances on that loan. And so for young people, they get credit card solicitations in the mail all the time. Once they turn at least 18, because before that you can't sign a legal contract. You're a minor, but 18, 19, some of these credit card companies will send credit cards to people, young people that don't really have an idea of how it works, because they know they've got a captive audience they can make money from. So it's very easy to spend money beyond your means. And I'll talk about some of how costly, the dangers of using these credit cards, especially at a young age, in upcoming slides here. There are some hidden costs with cards, and you have to be very selective as you look into some of these cards. Some cards charge annual fees. And of course, all cards have late payments. If you don't make that payment on time, they'll charge you a fee. And they might have like an interest rate, a beginning interest rate, or balance transfer interest rate, and all these great things. But if you miss a payment, that interest rate goes from 18 to 30% really quick. Or they have over limit fees. If you don't make a payment or forget a payment, you overspend, they'll charge you more fees. So these costs just add up, and it's just a spiral out of control. If you're not cautious, you'll be in a world of hurt. So the road to financial independence really starts with being financially responsible in the use of cards. And if you can't do that, probably best not to have any. It accumulates debts so quickly by overspending. And how does this impact your credit? If you looked at your credit card report, your credit report, your credit score goes down a lot if you've got higher credit card balances. Let's say you've got 3 cards and they have all got $1,000 limit, and you've got them all maxed out, meaning you owe $1,000 on all of those cards. They're maxed out. You can't use anymore. Why does that make your credit score go down? Well, these credit bureaus, the 3 bureaus, have a lot of data, and they know when someone's premeditating or thinking about filing bankruptcy. What do they do? What are some of their spending habits? Well, if I was going to go out and, file bankruptcy, I would go around town spending all this money on my credit cards in preparation for that. It's like free money. What a great thing. And so, if your credit credit card balances go up, your credit score goes down. Usually a good rule of thumb is you want to keep those at 30, maybe 50% of the line of credit. So if you've got a credit card limit of $3,000, maybe you use $1,000, maybe $1,500, but you want to keep it well within. And maybe it's okay to max them out if you've got a reason, but then you're going to pay it off the next month. That's fine. But if you're applying for a car loan, if you're applying for a mortgage loan, the first thing you want to do is to pay off all those credit cards and leave them at a 0 balance. Have that lender pull your credit with those balances very low or 0 to get the best credit score you've got. That way you can get the best rate on a mortgage or a car loan. So, it's a huge deal. If you manage that, you'll pay thousands and thousands of dollars less in interest costs than if you're not managing that and showing responsibility. Even insurance companies will look at your credit, say, how responsible is this person? And they factor that into your insurance rates. So it's a huge deal. Be cautious, be careful with credit cards. So there's some things that you can do that are healthy financial habits. What are some tips for building healthy financial habits? We talked about some of these. Of course, you need to have a budget. You need to have a plan. You need to have a plan to save money, save for big purchases. Responsibly spend if you're spending. Make decisions jointly or carefully. If you're married, make sure that spouse is involved in that decision. You're unified on that. And as you accumulate assets and wealth, be very cautious with scams, people coming to you and saying, I'm going to give you a 50% return on your money if you give it to me for 6 months. A lot of times that's fraud. They're offering things way outside of normal. A lot of times that's fraud. Or if you're okay taking a gamble, say to yourself, well, we're okay losing that money. So don't bet the farm on it. Setting financial goals and working towards them. When we were first married, we did live with my in-laws for a long time, for 6 months. We lived in their apartment that they owned for very, very reduced rents in order to save a down payment for a house. Sacrifice. You got to be willing to sacrifice to make those financial goals that you have. You have to have a plan for saving for retirement. You have to have a plan to have a rainy day fund. You have to have a plan to start out with an emergency fund. That's your baseline. You've got to have money set aside. If my expenses are $2,000 a month, I need to have planned for 6 months of money in an account just in case we have unexpected expenses or if I lose a job. It gives me time to try to replace that income. You start with a month, then build up to a month and a half, get 2 months, but your goal is at least 6 months of emergency funds in an account that you don't use, and it's in a secured fund, a secured bank or credit union. So if credit cards are too difficult to discipline yourself, there are alternatives to credit cards. Like I said before, you can use a debit card where it comes right out of your account, and make sure you talk to the bank or credit union and say, hey, I don't want to authorize any courtesy pay, they call it. Courtesy pay is where they allow your card to be used beyond what you have in your account. So if I've got $100 and I swipe something for 150 in my account, it should deny the transaction. Some banks will, like I say, allow you to have a courtesy, and they'll allow that to go through and then charge you a fee. So you can have prepaid cards where you load it with cash, or you can just use cash. I think that's a great idea. My in-laws, when they were first married, thought it was a great idea. He'd come with his paycheck, take most of it in cash, and then they'd put X amount of dollars in cash in an envelope for groceries. He'd put X amount in an envelope for clothing, X amount in an envelope for other expenses that they had monthly. Once that cash was gone and no more cash in the envelope, they were done spending. So of course there are benefits to credit cards if you can use them responsibly. We use them. We run all of our expenses mostly through credit cards, and then usually even before it's due, we go in and pay off those balances just so we can get those points. Be very cautious though. So use your credit responsibly. Pay your bills on time. Keep your credit utilization low so that balance to limit ratio, keep that low. You can look at your credit at least annually without a fee and without it impacting your score. If you go to annualcreditreport.com, you can look at all three bureaus and see if there's any issues or problems on there that doesn't impact your score, and they allow you to do it annually for free. I think there is a charge if you want to actually see your score. It's like $7, but if you don't, you can look at the report for free and see what's on there. Make sure there's no issues or fraud going on, identity theft kind of issues. It's so important that you can show people that you're responsible in paying your bills, that you can be trusted to repay money. If you can do that, your cost to borrow will be the best possibly that it can. So here's some from the internet. I found some of the highest credit card rates. It's unbelievable. They don't have a legal limit. Most banks or credit unions are limited to 18%. Not these credit card companies. They could charge you up to 30%. So you can see here, American Express, 29.99%. Capital One, 30%. Discover Card, 28%. Chase, 29%. That's unbelievable. So if you have a credit card balance of $10,000, you're paying $3,000 in interest every year, and that's if you don't make any additional purchases. It's slavery. It's terrible. So here's some of the true costs of using a credit card. Let's take that $10,000 and say the interest rate's not 30, but it's 25. You're getting a deal. So minimum payment's $300. How long would it take you to pay off that credit card if you just made the minimum monthly payments? And this is assuming that you make no new charges and the interest rate remains at the cost of 25. It would take you 16 years to pay it off. Well, let's say you get a deal and you pay 18% instead of 25%, and everything else remaining the same. Oh, well, you'd shave off a year, so you'd take it 15 years. So let's say you're married and you have two kids, one's 5, one's 7, and it's been your dream and it's been their dream to take them to the happiest place on earth. Let's say you want to take them to Disneyland, and like they deserve it. I deserve it. I deserve a vacation, but I don't have the money. If you don't have the money, what you deserve is you can go to the backyard and play with a box with your kids. And that's what you deserve. You don't deserve anything. I mean, sorry, but that's the truth. Um, anyways, let's say you do it anyway. So you take your 5-year-old and your 7-year-old and you spend, the outrageous money for the daily pass and the hotel and the gas and all that stuff. And it's $10,000. So they're 5 now. By the time they're 20, you'll have that trip paid off. Do you really think it was worth it? No, I mean, they're signing you up for slavery. You're signing away years of your life. Very sad that they are allowed to do this, but discipline yourself. It's not the requirement of legislature people, lawmaking people to come in and legislate your good behavior. You have to discipline yourself. So, in conclusion, to be financially independent really starts with controlling your spending. You have to discipline yourself, or you end up being someone else's slave. If you don't use credit cards correctly, you shouldn't have them. The wise use them correctly. If you're not wise, just tear them up, get rid of them, use a debit card. It's interesting. I was just talking to a friend yesterday. His nephew and his wife are in a terrible financial position right now because of credit cards. They owe $7,000 or $10,000 and they're getting charged 30%. They got a big tax refund. They're getting $10,000, $11,000. And he asked him, well, what are you going to do? And this defines the position they're in. Well, he said, well, aren't you going to pay off your credit cards? You're paying 30% interest. That's at least $300 a month you'd save. He said, well, that means we wouldn't have any money. What about that motorcycle I want to buy? What about this stuff for the house and for the kids? First things first, get rid of that debt. It's like slavery. You can do it. Buckle down. And he tried to tell him, spend that money on paying off your debts that are killing you. That's the best thing to do. I hope this helps.